Okay, let's unpack this. We are doing a deep dive into a genre that, well, it keeps us up at night, it makes us question everything we see.
And frankly, it's absolutely thriving in the streaming era. I'm talking about the psychological thriller.
It's the perfect subject to dissect.
It really is. And
Hmm.
we've synthesized a really comprehensive stack of material for you today. Everything from critical film rankings of 2025's top movies like Black Bag, One Battle After Another.
All the way through to academic content analysis.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at how streaming giants, like Netflix, are using pretty sophisticated data analytics to feed our collective appetite for these high-tension, mind-bending stories.
So our mission today is to give you that shortcut to being well-informed. We want you to walk away not just knowing which 2025 thrillers were the year's best and why they worked.
But also understanding the huge sort of structural reasons, the business reasons, why these platforms are pouring so much money and power into this specific kind of storytelling.
We are connecting the creative hits to the big picture strategy.
And to start that journey, we really need to establish our terms. Before we look at the hits, what truly defines a psychological thriller? Because it gets confused with a basic crime drama all the time.
Yeah, I always think of it as a movie where the real setting is, the protagonist's head.
That's a perfect way to put it.
The external threats are almost secondary to that internal breakdown.
That's exactly right. The core definition is that it's a hybrid genre. It combines the classic tension of a thriller with psychological fiction.
Right.
And the key differentiator is that it shifts the focus away from physical stakes, like a bank heist or a missile launch, and onto the mental and emotional states of its characters.
That dissolving sense of reality feeling, that's what creates such incredible suspense because the danger isn't necessarily outside. It might be coming from inside the protagonist's own mind.
It's the ultimate driving force.
Yeah.
The suspense isn't built around predicting the next action sequence. It's built around uncertainty,
Uncertainty about what exactly?
about a character's motives, their honesty, and ultimately, whether the world they see is even stable. The genre just thrives when it pulls you into the mind of an obsessive or a pathological character.
And what's wild is that the techniques to do this aren't new. They're classic tools, some of which go all the way back to writers like Edgar Allan Poe.
Absolutely. If you look at the structure, it leans heavily on a few core devices. First, and maybe most critical, is the unreliable narrator.
A staple.
A total staple. The whole story is filtered through someone whose sanity or memory or honesty is questionable. So you, as the audience, have to question everything you're seeing.
And you're actively trying to figure out the truth.
Right. And sometimes that whole process gets completely derailed by the plot twist.
The big reveal at the end that changes everything.
And M. Night Shyamalan is, famously associated with that in modern cinema.
Mhm.
But let's also look at Hitchcock. He basically wrote the textbook. Take the MacGuffin.
Okay, the MacGuffin. Everyone throws that term around, but what is it really?
It's the goal or the item or the secret that starts the plot. It seems incredibly important, but its actual content is, well, it's irrelevant. Hitchcock himself said it's nothing at all.
So its only purpose is to get the characters moving.
Exactly. It drives the physical action, the chase, the search, which allows the filmmakers to focus entirely on the psychological reactions, the paranoia, the moral compromises.
You're the ultimate distraction.
It is. And right alongside that, you have the red herring.
A misleading clue.
A deliberately misleading clue. It's put there specifically to divert your attention, to lead you to the wrong conclusion, so the real reveal is that much more shocking.
So when you combine all these things, the themes you're exploring become incredibly weighty. This isn't just popcorn entertainment.
Not at all. We're talking death, existence, identity, perception, the very nature of reality. It's challenging stuff.
And that appetite for challenging material is translating directly into huge streaming numbers.
Mm-hmm. This genre is consistently at the top of the charts.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the films that absolutely nailed it in 2025.
That's right. Let's get into the top-ranked thrillers of the year, starting with the one pretty much everyone agrees is number one, Black Bag.
This was Steven Soderbergh doing what he does best. It's a spy thriller that is just a masterclass in efficiency. A very lean 94 minutes.
Proving you don't need a 3-hour runtime for depth.
Not at all. So Michael Fassbender plays George Woodhouse, a veteran British intelligence officer who is a master at profiling people.
And his skill is immediately put to the ultimate test. He's tasked with finding a mole who's leaking classified secrets.
And the tension isn't just the mission, it's the terrible personal dilemma.
Wow.
His wife, Catherine, played by Cate Blanchett, is the main suspect.
Oh, wow.
The beauty of Black Bag is just how concise it is. Soderbergh uses every single second to tighten that screw, making the emotional stakes loyalty to country versus loyalty to his marriage the only thing that matters.
You see his own perceptions start to crumble.
You do. It's a perfect use of the genre's framework, that one's streaming on Prime Video.
Okay, moving to number 2. We have Paul Thomas Anderson's epic, One Battle After Another. This one is already getting talked about as a Best Picture frontrunner.
And for good reason. It's critically acclaimed. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Bob Ferguson, a former revolutionary with a very complicated, violent past. He gets forced back into action when his daughter goes missing.
And an old enemy returns, I'm guessing.
Of course. An old adversary comes back to haunt him.
What the reviews really praised was how Anderson balanced this huge, sprawling plot with these incredibly intimate psychological stakes. It's not just about finding his daughter.
No, it's about him trying to reconcile the man he was with the man he has to be now.
And it has comedy in it. That seems surprising.
It is, but it works. The reviewers singled out the iconic telephone scene where DiCaprio's character just has this complete paranoid meltdown over a normal phone call. Plus, it has one of the most inventive car chases in years. You can find that one on HBO Max.
And finally, rounding out the top 3, we have a film that is, by all accounts, an absolutely brutal, tough watch. The Long Walk.
Oh, it is. It's the adaptation of that early Stephen King novel.
And the premise is just relentless.
Completely. The concept is a grueling endurance contest. 50 young boys have to walk nonstop. If a boy falls below the set pace 3 times, he's executed on the spot.
The psychological terror there is just immense. It's not a jump scare horror film. It's a constant, slow erosion of hope.
And that's why the sources all emphasize the friendship between the 2 leads, Ray, played by Cooper Hoffman, and Pete David Johnson.
That friendship is the only bright spot.
It's the only emotional anchor in this brutal scenario. The audience is just clinging to that bond as the only defense against the inevitable. If you're up for it, that's available on Amazon with purchase.
Okay, so we've run through the critical darlings, but let's transition to the films that stood out for different reasons. Maybe unique approaches or finding a second life on streaming. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, we're talking about those gems that had huge critical buzz, but just for whatever reason, bombed in theaters.
And then found their perfect audience at home. Let's start with Relay, the throwback conspiracy thriller. This one flew so far under the radar, it only grossed, what, $4 million?
A tiny amount.
Yeah.
Yet it has an 89% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's now doing great on Netflix.
So what's the hook?
It's deliberately styled after those soulful paranoid thrillers of the 70s, like The Conversation. Riz Ahmed plays this unnamed fixer who brokers payoffs between corrupt companies and whistleblowers. He lives by these strict, detached rules.
Until he breaks them, I assume?
Of course. The psychological tension kicks in when he gets personally invested in a client, played by Lily James, and his whole controlled world just collapses.
And the buzz around Ahmed's performance was huge.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people were calling it his James Bond audition tape. It's a very brainy thriller. It favors suspense and hidden threats over big action scenes.
Speaking of bold choices, we have to talk about Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing, a proper old-school crime thriller.
Sits at a solid 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got Austin Butler as Hank Thompson, a former baseball prodigy whose career crashed, so now he's a bartender.
And he gets pulled into the criminal underworld by cat-sitting.
Pretty much. But the cast is amazing. Austin Butler, Zoe Kravitz, Bad Bunny. But the thing the sources all flag is the film's bold choice.
What was it?
It's absolute ruthlessness. The screenplay kills off nearly every recognizable actor in the film, and it does it with this unceremonious, sudden quality that just heightens the danger. You never feel safe.
So it avoids that trope where the big stars are safe until the end.
Completely. The sources note that Zoe Kravitz's character is killed abruptly, off-screen. Bad Bunny's character is killed out of nowhere in a scene where he is the one making threats.
That makes the world feel genuinely random and dangerous.
Exactly. It's very much in the vein of a movie like The Departed. It serves a crucial purpose for the atmosphere.
That's incredibly effective. And finally, something very rare for this genre. A sequel that critics say is better than the original. I'm talking about Influencers.
Yeah, the 2025 follow-up to the 2022 film Influencer.
Why does this one work so well?
Because it completely shifts the perspective. It focuses entirely on the villain, CW, played by Cassandra Naud. She's a serial killer and con artist who targets these entitled social media personalities.
So by starting with her, you get a much more disturbing look into her psychology.
A far more intimate look. It really amplifies the critique of influencer culture, showing how she just can't control her compulsion to murder people she sees as vapid It's smarter than it sounds,
It's a really unnerving look at obsession.
for sure. And it resonated really strongly with streaming audiences.
So we've established that the genre is successful because it delivers these complex, mature narratives that audiences are craving. Now, let's pull back the curtain. Let's bring in the data. Why is this genre so perfect for the streaming business model?
This is where the content analysis of Netflix's library is so revealing. Now, if you look at the whole catalog, drama and comedy are still dominant, at about 18% and 15%.
Right.
But thrillers are a massive chunk of the rest, and that's a direct strategic investment,
And the growth story confirms that. The analysis shows content additions just exploded between 2015 and 2020.
exponentially. They added over 4,000 titles. That period lines up perfectly with their massive push for Netflix originals.
So they were moving from being a distributor to a full-on production studio.
Exactly, and data was guiding those choices. Now, here is the crucial data point that explains the success of the psychological thriller. Mature content is king.
How significant are we talking? A slight skew?
Not slight at all. TVMA and TV14 ratings combined, they account for over half of all titles in their entire library.
Wow, over half.
Think about that. It means Netflix is laser focused on mature and older teen audiences. They know that demographic is looking for complex, dark, challenging stories.
And family-friendly stuff like TVY and PG is a much smaller share.
A much smaller secondary share. So this genre, with its heavy themes of death and identity and violence, it aligns perfectly with the demographic Netflix is actually serving.
Adult viewers who want realism and thrills.
Absolutely. And what's more, the data also explains that trend we saw with a film like Black Bag being so short. Content strategy now favors shorter formats.
Miniseries, stand-up specials, documentaries.
It all aligns with modern binge-watching behavior.
And thrillers are perfect for that.
They're built for it. They rely on tight pacing. They can maintain that high-stakes atmosphere over a short runtime or a concise miniseries. They don't need the slow character building of a longer drama. They're designed to hook you for that next episode.
The binge effect.
The definition of it. And finally, we have to look at the regional data. While the U.S. is still dominant, the fastest growth rates post-2018 came from India and South Korea.
That's vital. It shows the global, borderless appeal of the genre.
It really does. Because the core appeal, paranoia, moral ambiguity, visual suspense, it translates incredibly well across cultures. It doesn't rely as heavily on specific cultural dialogue or humor.
You just have to look at something like Squid Game or Money Heist.
Exactly. They are fundamentally high-stakes psychological thrillers. And they prove the formula works anywhere. The platforms know that global success often lies in content that is visually driven and universally tense.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the best creative work of 2025, from the sharp espionage of Black Bag to the brutal violence of Caught Stealing, and we've concluded these films work because they satisfy an audience craving for challenging, mature material.
And we know that craving is backed up by hard data. The psychological thriller is successful because it fits the mature audience profile dominating streaming, and its structure adapts perfectly to the concise, binge-friendly formats platforms now prioritize.
So if streaming success continues to be driven by data that favors this mature, adult-focused content, as the dominance of TVMA and TV14 rating suggests, this raises a pretty important question for you to think about.
Yet, will these platforms ever invest significantly in genres that don't prioritize that mature rating? Or are complex, challenging narratives now the permanent center of the streaming universe? Will the pressure of data ultimately squeeze out investment in genres that appeal to younger audiences just because they don't fit that adult-focused data profile? It's something to mull over the next time you hit play.